Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. We're going to do a quick podcast on intermittent fasting, the do's and don'ts. Who's it good for? Who isn't it good for? OMAD, 1 meal a day. Let's dive in, Evan. So off the bat, we see a lot of patients that have adrenal issues, that have gut issues, that have a lot of hormone issues. And there's a lot of stuff on intermittent fasting being like this magic bullet that's out there. And I see a lot of people, fasting can be a good thing, but there's no magic to not eating anything. I mean, you have some systems that upregulate regarding recycling and anti-aging pathways, but you still got to get nutrition into your body. So I want to break down a couple of myths. I want to talk about who intermittent fasting is good or not good for, and we'll kind of, address it from a clinical perspective. Most people talking about it, they aren't clinicians. They aren't dealing with this stuff at a clinical level. They're just providing information and letting the chips fall as they may.
Yeah, maybe you should define intermittent fasting first. How do you even say, yes, this is considered intermittent fasting, this is not considered intermittent fasting? What do you make of that? Because some people say, well, I just don't eat breakfast because I'm too busy. I mean, are they technically doing an intermittent fast or not? How do you classify it?
Excellent. Really, really good point. So intermittent fasting is you're compressing your feeding window. So it could be 16 hours of not eating to 8 hours of eating. That may look like you're eating between noon and 8 p.m., right? It could be an 18/6 where you're eating between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. So you compress it to a 6-hour window. It could be a 20-hour and then a 4-hour eating window. Maybe you have a meal at 4 p.m. or let's say 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., right? Or 7 p.m. You could do that. So those are your big kind of compression windows. And then there's the OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, where you're doing just one meal once a day. And you're having like a 20-plus-hour feeding window. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So there are some benefits in terms of hormones. It's crazy to me that the human growth hormone goes up. I don't really know the mechanism or the why behind this. I know that your HGH production does go up when you're intermittent fasting. I wonder why though, because to me, the fasting is more of like a stress response. So maybe it's part of the stress response. The HGH goes up. We know that, you may get a little bump of cortisol too, right? To kind of put you in that hunting mode. Like, hey, you're not eating, or you're not successfully hunting. It's time to go. So you may get a bump of cortisol, but the HGH, I just think it's interesting.
Well, there's a glucose suppression test or an HGH suppression test where they'll actually give you a shot of glucose, and then they'll actually watch growth hormone drop. So they'll give you glucose, and then they'll test your growth hormone after they've given you glucose, and they'll see your HGH drop. So I think a lot of it has to do with the surge in glucose and or insulin acutely does knock down your growth hormone. I think that's part of the reason why keeping insulin low does increase growth hormone. Now, in that stage of the game, though, a lot of bodybuilders still use insulin post-workout, and they primarily use it to open the cell up so they can drive more nutrition and more amino acids into the cell, aka the muscle cell, after workout. So I do know insulin is anabolic and is used anabolically, but stimulating insulin acutely via glucose and food can also drop growth hormone down acutely as well. So it's a double-edged sword with insulin. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I would just say the important thing to remember with intermittent fasting too is you still have to focus on good quality nutrition. Like if you wake up and you're only eating 6 or 8 hours through the day, but all you're eating is some like paleo protein bar and then like a green smoothie, that's not enough. We still have to remember, you still got to get good quality nutrition, good quality calories. I see a lot of people where we'll look at their food journal and let's say they are doing intermittent fasting. They'll wake up and they'll have a smoothie, which is like, protein powder and almond milk. That's it for their supposed lunch. And then they'll do like a chicken salad. It's like, no way. You're not going to feel good on that.
Exactly. Yep. So in general, somatostatin, which is going to be released so somatostatin inhibits growth hormone release in response to growth hormone releasing hormone to stimulating factors such as low blood glucose. Ghrelin binds to receptors of the somatotropes. That's the part of the pituitary that stimulates growth hormone and potentially stimulates growth hormone. So from how I'm reading this is basically that low blood glucose is going to have a stimulatory effect on growth hormone release. Therefore, higher blood glucose is going to decrease that feedback loop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and hypoglycemia, a potent stimulus to secrete growth hormone. So hypoglycemia produces an abrupt, sustained rise in the level of growth hormone. So it makes sense if these low blood sugar states or lower blood sugar states can increase growth hormone. It makes sense if you're doing the opposite and you're spiking your blood sugar, that it would negatively impact growth hormone.
Well, we know with other hormones too, like ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone. Ghrelin normalizes when you're doing intermittent fasting. I mean, we talk with so many people where they notice that they are just not as hungry. You know, you feel like you're just going to starve to death, but you just don't. You're not starving, and I guess part of that's probably because you're producing ketones. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, ketones have a strong appetite suppression effect. My big concern is this, right? Here's my big issue, just kind of putting it out there. So number one, are you a healthy individual? Okay. If you're a healthy individual and your symptoms are relatively under control, and I know that may not be a good marker for health because you may still have some health imbalances with your thyroid or autoimmunity or gut, and you may still be symptom free, right? But let's just use, hey, I'm feeling relatively good health wise, I'm symptom free. Then I think doing more of these intermittent fasting things can be helpful. Number one. Number two, it also depends on how stressed you are during the day because your body needs nutrients to run. It needs nutrients to run. Now, you're going to get caloric forms of energy just by releasing fat that you can start burning for fuel. But that fat is not B vitamins. That fat are not nutrients. So first and foremost, you're not going to get adequate levels of nutrition. Number two, we know people, even in fasting states, let's just use the British sailors from Europe to coming to the New World, I think in the 17 and 1800s, they were called limeys. Why were they called limeys? Because they would basically be on these trips coming overboard. They had a lot of nutritional deficiencies. They would get scurvy. So they basically, their capillaries would dissolve, so to speak, because they didn't have enough vitamin C. And they'd be chewing on limes the whole trip because they found that limes would help the vitamin C and prevent their capillaries from rupturing from the lack of integrity, from the lack of vitamin C, essentially scurvy. So they needed vitamin C. So there's a level where just fasting and not eating enough calories eventually bites you in the butt because you're not getting nutrition in. There's eventually that balance. And my other balance is people say, well, your nutritional needs go down when you're fasting. Well, I get that because you know, ideally your body, when you're in a fasting state, it's down regulating your metabolism, right? So if you're in a fasting state, you can go into PubMed and type in hypocaloric state or hypocaloric and low thyroid hormone or low triiodothyronine or increase in reverse T3. The scientific literature is very clear that thyroid function will drop. Your overall metabolic rate will drop in response to a low caloric environment. Reverse T3, which is your inactive thyroid hormone that clogs the receptor sites where your thyroid would go, increases. So there's this balance of, yes, your thyroid hormone, your metabolism will drop, your metabolic needs will drop, but is that necessarily a good thing? Because we want a robust metabolism. You don't drop your metabolic needs and then still feel incredibly robust. Now, if you already have healthy thyroid function to begin with, it may not be that big of a deal. Maybe you're in the top 25% of the reference range and now you start moving mid-range. But what if you're already a little bit below mid-range and then now you start dropping way below? You see what I'm saying here? So it's a slippery slope. People talk about your metabolic needs drop when you're intermittent fasting or doing these various techniques, but why? What's happening? And what are the ramifications of that? And if we already have thyroid issues and already have blood sugar issues, if we already have adrenal problems and hormonal issues, that could actually be a stressor to you. People forget that. Fasting is actually a stressor to your body because you're not getting nutrition in. The people that benefit the most from fasting are people that, number one, have really irritated guts. Their digestion's really poor, so not digesting foods as much helps a lot. They're avoiding a lot of food allergens, number two. And they already have a relatively healthy metabolism because you can still be on a ketogenic paleo template and you can still get a lot of the benefits of fasting, which is the lower insulin, the growth hormone, and still get adequate nutrition and still have at least 2 meals a day. My recommendation is at least 2 meals a day. I'll pause there and let you kind of give me your thought process. I don't want to go too deep until we chat a little bit more.
Sure. No, that was all great. I just wanted to point out for me that I had so much stress just working with clients and moving from house to house and all that, that when I looked at my blood, my reverse T3 was too high. I was actually up into the low 30s, which is really high for reverse T3. And I was really, really cold. Now, I haven't retested my blood to confirm that the reverse T3 has gone down, but I just wanted to add my comment that I've personally experienced what you just mentioned, which is that if you have your stress bucket already full, you and I are busy, go, 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 go during the week. My bucket was already full. I couldn't afford to skip a meal. So I'm on 3 meals a day. And I saw it on the blood work to confirm, and I felt it. My hands, my feet, I had the circulation issues. Some of that was related to mold and all that, nitric oxide. But I do know that my thyroid, I could definitely feel just the weakening of myself if I were to do just a protein shake with breakfast and not an actual solid breakfast like you're talking about. I was just nutrient depleted based on the amount of stress. My seesaw was imbalanced.
Exactly. Now, my typical breakfast, though, I like doing a nice coffee. I feel like I get very good cognitive benefits with some caffeine and some coffee. And I also add in butter. I add in collagen, and I add in MCT oil. So number one, I'm bumping up my ketones first thing in the morning. I'm getting adequate calories, and I'm getting a good whack of amino acids as well. So I have that good, and of course I'm taking a good multi-support pack as well. So I'm getting some extra vitamins and minerals, and then I hit up the good fats and the ketone precursors. And then maybe I'll also sip on some celery juice just to get some extra potassium and B vitamins. So there's that. You can go into it fasting. I mean, I have no problem with it. I'll typically pick one day a week where I'll just do a coffee, and then I won't eat till 2 or 3 o'clock. And I'll try to do that one day a week. I find a lot of people are taking intermittent fasting and they're making it their lifestyle. And I can't tell you how many people I see that are that chronically skip meals and have blood sugar issues and have adrenal problems and a lot of symptoms too. I'm not saying this causes that, but it is a stressor. And the stronger and healthier you are, that stressor can have a lot of benefits if you can overcome the stress of what it's causing. If you already have enough, let's say, stress balls in your stress bucket, that may be enough to put you over the top. And I personally find that a lot of people don't have the reserves to be able to overcome. If you already have a lot of issues, you can't fast or starve your way out of it. And there's a fine line where this intermittent fasting thing becomes an eating disorder, especially when in your feeding window, you're not getting enough nutrition and you're not meeting your metabolic needs for the day. And I think it's really easy to do that when you're doing an OMAD or you're doing 1 to 2 meals a day, because now your meals got to be essentially 50% bigger than your typical lunch or dinner. And then number 2 is if you're doing a 1 meal a day, I mean, good luck eating 2,500 calories or 2,000 calories at one sitting. Let's say I need 2,500 calories and you're under the auspice that, well, my metabolic needs have dropped. Okay, well, try getting 2,000 calories at a meal. That's pretty hard. I mean, you need a big salad. You need a lot of fat, at least maybe 1.5 avocados on there. You need a lot of nuts, a lot of seeds. You need a really good fatty dressing. You need at least 8 to 12 ounces of protein on there, at least that, maybe even 16. So it becomes this really kind of delicate balance. And I see a lot of people that have a lot of hormone issues that are falling into that trap and are coming in, and it's not enough to get them over the top.
Yeah, I mean, not that I want to get into calorie counting and all that because I get bored, but I'll just mention a cup of broccoli, which is maybe an average serving size, 30 calories. So if you have a woman that's like got hormonal problems and she has, a small piece of meat and then a cup of broccoli as her dinner, it's like, good Lord, you maybe got 500-600 calories.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people online. There's Dr. Berg. He's another guy that puts a lot of content out there. I think he has a lot of great content, but he's a big 1 meal a day guy. And again, let's say you do 10 servings of vegetables. Okay. There's 300 calories there. All right. You need 2,000 calories a day. So you're going to need a ton of fat, and you're probably going to need, I'm 6'2", 220 pounds, right? I'm going to need probably a 16 ounce steak or 16 ounces of protein in there to get enough nutrition. I'm going to need a lot of fat. I'm probably going to need 2 avocados cut up. I'm probably going to need a really fatty dressing that's drenched in probably a lot of nuts and seeds. So, but also that's a lot of food to digest at one time.
That's true.
I think it's going to be a lot. So you'd probably need extra HCl and extra. It's just a lot of stuff on your tummy.
I'm looking up bison meat, because I really enjoy a bison burger. So let's say this 1 meal a day person, or even a 2 meal a day person. Let's just make up a story that you did a bison burger with veggies for lunch and a bison burger with veggies for dinner. A 6-ounce bison burger, 185 calories. Granted, you get almost 40 grams of protein, but not even 200 calories from it, and you
So
throw
you
in
get
that
200 calories there. And let's say you do 4 servings of vegetables with it. Okay, maybe you're at 120 to 150. I mean, you're gonna have to have a lot of fat. You're gonna have to eat a ton of fat.
I think there's a lot more people now that we're kind of flushing this out together. I feel like there's probably more people in this space under eating than overeating.
And that's what I was saying. Intermittent fasting can be a slippery slope to an eating disorder. Like, okay, let's have a conversation about what truly differentiates anorexia and intermittent fasting. Because I could imagine someone being anorexic saying, hey, look at all the awesome benefits of this. I'm losing weight, I'm this. But obviously, there's one person is trying to meet their caloric needs and burn fat, while the other person is burning everything, right? They're burning fat, they're a bag of bones, they have no muscle, they're fatigued. I mean, you can see their bones. So there's obviously this fine balance. And I really want to draw a line because I'm just seeing a lot of stuff online where the line is totally blurred. And I could see that being an eating disorder clinically.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right, here's another example. A lot of people are doing almond butter, almond bars, etc. Maybe this is the snack that they do. That for a cup, which nobody's eating a cup of almonds. That is a lot of almonds. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's a half cup, but a cup of almonds is around 500 calories. So let's say you had a handful of almonds with that bison steak and your broccoli. So you're at maybe 250, and then you throw in an extra 200 or so with the almonds. You're still less than 500. And if you do that twice a day, you're still only at 1,000. God, that makes me feel like I'm under eating.
I know, doesn't it? So that's why I scratch my head being like, yeah, your metabolism goes down, you need less, but why is it going down? It's going down because your body's freaking out that there's not enough nutrition there, and it's down regulating metabolic pathways. So my generalized advice is if you have health concerns or health issues, get them under control first. You'd probably want to start with at least 2 solid meals a day and at least 1 shake or some kind of a smoothie, or maybe a bulletproof coffee or a butter fat coffee with some extra nutrients in it, maybe some celery juice as a good breakfast, because then you're getting a lot of nutrition, calories, amino acids. You're starting your day with a lot of ketone precursors, and then 2 really good meals later in the day. A lot of good vegetables at each meal, a lot of good fat, a lot of good protein, avoiding the leaner meats. That's good. Or if we have more issues, we may just want to even start with 3 solid meals. All right, people that have a hard time gaining weight, we're doing 4 meals a day.
Yeah.
And then I typically recommend, as we get healthier, we can choose 1 to 2 days a week where we do an intermittent fast. And let's start with a 16 by 8. So we eat between 12 and 8, because you can still get 3 meals between 12 and 8 pretty easily.
Yeah.
But you don't have to increase your meal size that much. As soon as you compress it to a 18 by 6 or a 20 by 4, now you only get 2 meals. Now you got to eat 50% more in each meal to get your nutritional needs up.
But even at that, yeah, it does make sense. Even at that point, though, you're probably going to feel sleepy or fatigued or bloated or something by the time you eat that much food. At that point, you're trying to remedy the digestive issue. But in those cases, smaller, more frequent, 3 or 4 a day is probably going to be better than 2 huge ones.
This is the reason why people get tired after their Thanksgiving Day meal. I mean, yes, there's a carb issue, but there's a size issue. When you eat so much food, there's a lot of resources your body needs to do to digest it and break it down. So that's part of the reason why people get tired after these big OMADs, these 1 meal a day things. Is a lot of digestion that has to happen. That's a big problem as well.
Yeah, this is an important conversation. On the surface, people may listen and be like, man, this is boring. Just talking about, do I eat 2 meals a day? Do I eat 3 meals a day? But really, this is your foundation of the gas tank. We dig so much into supplements and adaptogenic herbs and restoring gut issues and eradicating parasites and infections and all that. But that's the level 201 or 301 stuff. This is the 101 stuff, where if you don't get this right, you can't really advance to the other stuff, because your compliance will fail because you feel bad or you're too tired to stay on a protocol.
Yeah, and me and you, we'll keep everyone nameless, but we've had some friends and colleagues where we have these little healthy debates about this topic. and they've been very pro intermittent fasting, which we are, but we're more with caveats. And one of the big caveats are, how many people do we see that have gut issues, gut infections, or compromised digestion already?
Like
And then
95%.
yeah, and then now you're going to tell me, okay, now eat 50% more at the meals that you eat so we can compress that feeding window down. I mean, do you think that puts more stress on the digestive system or less? I mean, definitely more.
Yeah, it's well, and also the difference too is you and I are not just publishing a video. Here's the 20 benefits of intermittent fasting, and then you send people on the way. We have to
A lot of
follow
clickbait.
up.
It's a lot of clickbait,
Yeah.
and we have to people go online and they read lots of stuff. Everything can work with the right situation and the right person, but at the same time, everything has a possibility of not working. So then, if you're producing content online, it's great because the people that want to find it will find it. The problem is when you're dealing with people, we need to not try to put a square peg through a circle hole. We have to understand who may be beneficial for and who it may not be beneficial for. So we have to be able to look at it as it's not an on-off thing. It's who's the best candidate for this. And if you're not the best candidate, here's why and here's what to look for. So if you're having issues and you're struggling, here's the reason why. And it's not you. You may be doing everything totally right. There may be other things we have to look deeper at, like the adrenals, like the gut issues, like low stomach acid, achlorhydria or hypochlorhydria, gut infections, thyroid issues, autoimmunity. So these are all really important things that could be the reason why an intermittent fasting thing may not be the right fit for you, or the reason why you're struggling, number one. And number two, if you have things under control, let's start with a 16/8 and see how we do. And then you can move to an 18/6 and see how you do. And just make sure you can get at least 2 meals a day. I think the OMAD's a little bit bad because of how much you have to eat at one time. That's no different than a Thanksgiving Day dinner, personally.
Yeah, it's just a one big feast. It would be really sexy to say everybody could just do this or that, but the nuance is something we have to bring up just because we're working with people one-on-one. And if we give them a protocol and they fail or they don't get a result we're looking for, then we have to come back and fix it. So, obviously our perspective is going to be a bit different than somebody who just makes a blog article or a video, because if they follow our advice, we have to follow up with them. Hey, how did it go? So this is more of like the behind the curtain information than what you're typically going to get in an article or a video or podcast.
100%. Yep. Anything else, Evan, you want to highlight on the topic?
I would just say what you started to rant on and then you stopped, which is get the clinical data, get the laboratory information. You mentioned adrenals, you mentioned thyroid, you mentioned the gut. Do a good workup on yourself. If the world were so simple that you could just diet and exercise, I mean, we would have fixed people's problems, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, whoever knows how many years ago. But there's so many people still doing paleo or whole foods diets or keto diets or whatever, and they're still miserable. They still, feel bad. They can't sleep. They're overweight. They're depressed. They're anxious. They've got skin issues. So if diet and the exercise were the variables that actually gave you a result, then we wouldn't be talking. So get the workup done. If your doctor will run a full panel where they can look at your ferritin and address anemias, as you and I were kind of talking about off air, look at the thyroid, the reverse T3, get your free T3 run, get your antibodies run, go above and beyond your standard blood work. Use that data to help guide you. And then if you need a practitioner, reach out to Justin, reach out to me. We love helping people. We don't care about whether you pick one of us. We just want you to get better. And if you keep spinning your wheels, you can't do the same thing over and expect different results. So you're like, I'm going to swap, my protein shake that was a pea protein for a grass-fed whey protein shake. That variable may do nothing if you don't address your gut infection. Like for me, I continued to lose weight and have terrible skin until I fixed my gut. And then finally I was able to bring my weight back up and get my skin health back to normal. And I was eating no dairy and no gluten, and I still suffered.
Exactly. And I'm just curious, people that are listening, if anyone had good responses during intermittent fasting, just put it in the comments. Anyone that's had negative reactions to intermittent fasting? I'm curious as well. Put that in the comments. I'd like to just chat about that briefly, just to see if anyone's had negative reactions. And we just want to look at and be able to draw the line. There's a very fine line between having an eating disorder and anorexia and doing intermittent fasting and getting adequate nourishment. Because most people that are already having health issues that are reaching out to intermittent fasting, they may already be nutritionally deficient, and they may already be moving more into a nutritionally deficient state. Even with adequate eating, they're just not getting enough of that food. And that may further exacerbate the nutritionally deficient state. I mean, think about it. If you're getting enough calories, but let's say your diet isn't the best, okay, well, let's say you have 25 or 20% less nutrition than, let's say, a whole food-based diet, but then now your calories cut in half, or cut in half by maybe 60% less, 40% less, but now the food is more nutritionally dense, but you're just eating less of it. You may not have enough nutrition in the food to make up for the caloric deficit. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, it does. It sounded
So
confusing, but it
if
makes
you
sense.
were eating this much food, but let's say this much of it was nutritionally dense, but now you're eating this much food and all of it's nutritionally dense, you still have this gap over here where you're missing this nutrition. And again, I'm doing some hand stuff. So if you're listening on the podcast, you may want to check out the video. We'll put the video link below. But either way, we have to make sure if you are doing some kind of an IF or intermittent fasting thing, you are getting adequate amounts of nutrition too.
Yeah, I felt more anxious when I did it. That's my personal thing. When I would try to either push my breakfast back or skip a meal, I get on the call with clients. I'm working, I'm burning. The candle's lit. I've got this stress in my bucket. Adaptogenic herbs help regulate it, but I still did not feel that good, satiated, calm, relaxed. I felt like I was running from a bear. So then when I ate breakfast, had a good pastured sausage or a bacon or some blueberries, pecans, and I was satiated, that stress response was shut down. My body's like, oh, okay, Evan's not starving to death. We don't need to go hunt today. Hunting was successful. You can relax now. So, I mean, there's the primal wiring system behind all this that people forget about.
100%. So Kelly Clark, or Rob Kelly Clark, writes in, when I had negative reactions, I felt like I was crashing every morning, lightheaded, shaky, not able to think quickly and thoughtfully. I see that a lot. But then Matt writes in, intermittent fasting has been great. It's been helping my bloating, controlling SIBO sometimes. I think people have an overgrowth. Simply reducing the amount of meals helps starve them off. I would push back on that and just say you may be able to have similar benefit by just cutting out some of the fermentable carbohydrates. So people that had benefits on the SIBO, I do agree, when you're not eating, you're starving off some of those microbes. The problem is you actually need to kill some of these microbes too. Just the diet change alone is you're starving some of them out, but you're still not, you need to wipe them out too. And there could be some other deeper infections. So that's part of the issue. And I think you may also be able to solve some of that by cutting out the higher FODMAPs and making sure some of these things are cooked. Because when you have a lot of poor microbiome issues, you need fiber to feed good microbiome. But when there's too much bad critters there, that fiber, especially from the higher fermentable foods, the high FODMAP foods, that could be enough to feed that bad bacterial overgrowth.
This is true. Well, that's where the order of operations comes in, right? We'll see a lot of people, for example, the lady that I work with that had the worst candida overgrowth ever was a lady who was drinking 5 kombuchas a day. And I was like, my God, okay, you took something that could be good and you did way too much of a, quote, good thing.
And how did she feel? She got bloated after it?
Oh, she was terrible. Bloated, brain fog. She was drunk. She said, I can't even focus. She said, I look down at my paper. I can't even see what's in front of me. I mean, she had a ton of cognitive issues as well.
Yeah. And if you see that, that's a really good sign, and you can be on top of it and know those symptoms ahead of time.
So what did we do? Well, we got rid of the kombucha completely, and we came in and used an antimicrobial protocol based on a stool test that showed she had not only sky-high candida, but she had a ton of bacterial overgrowth too. So it's like, yeah, probiotics are cool. Yeah, kombucha is cool, good supplement, but not in this case. You gotta take care of the bad guys first.
Totally. And someone wrote in, this is a great question, is what do you think about a 12-hour fasting? I think that's something that's great. I think everyone should be able to do that. I think that's awesome. So if you're looking at finishing dinner around 7 or 8 o'clock, you don't have breakfast till 7 or 8 o'clock on the AM side. I think that's great. And I think that's something that everyone can and should be able to engage in. And part of the reason why you can do that is when you're sleeping, your metabolic needs obviously drop because you're not moving. you're in a kind of hibernation state. So your metabolic needs go far less. So you can fast for that period of time, right? So I think 12 hours is a really good compromise for anyone with a lot of metabolic issues. And then if you're feeling more up to it, then you move more to a 16/8. And then if you're feeling even better, then you can move to an 18/6, and you can try it a couple days a week. And I just always tell people, try to take your more stressful days and have something in the morning those more stressful days, even if it's like some celery juice and some amino acids and MCT oil if you want to keep it simple, or a simple smoothie, all the way up to bacon and eggs if you want even more nutrition.
Yep, good advice. And yeah, good question. I'm on like a 12-hour fast, I guess you'd say. I eat around 6:30. Actually, no, I'm more than that. I'm like 14 hours because I don't usually eat till 8. So yeah, I'm almost at 14 hours and I feel good. I feel solid. There was a time in my life though where I needed a snack after dinner. And that may have just been my gut issues, adrenal issues, something like that. It sounds like, isn't everybody doing a 12-hour fast? But no, we have a ton of clients that are like, man, 9 o'clock comes around and they're going and raiding the fridge. And that's because something's messed up. And it could be brain chemistry related too, which is a whole nother podcast. It could be serotonin or something that's causing night cravings.
I personally find people that have lunch, let's say around 12 or 1, and then they have dinner around 7 or 8, there's like a 7 or 8 hour gap that when they eat that dinner, even though it's a normal sized dinner, they went so long, there's a caloric and nutritional deficit. So they have extra cravings after dinner because they're trying to fill in this big gap here. So there's that, number one. And then also just making sure you're eating enough protein and fat and good fibrous vegetables that will fill you up. And then try to choose a healthier snack after dinner. So my big snack is I put my son down and I'm going to have some unsweetened coconut yogurt and some fresh berries, like raspberries or blueberries, pretty low sugar. So I'm getting protein, I'm getting fat, and I'm getting a little bit of carbohydrates, not much. I mean, you can go Google a handful of raspberries. It's probably maybe 5 or 6 net carbs. So it's not much at all, but it will give you some good nutrition, and it's tasty too. So it gives you that dessert kind of feel without the negative consequences.
Yeah, a lot of people disrespect their lunch. We could do a whole nother hour on this. I know we got to wrap up, but so many people think of their lunch as just let's get it over with. Let's rush to the fast food. Let's rush to Whole Foods and stop at the salad bar and shove something down my face in 5 minutes and go back to work. And I'm not going to say that I haven't rushed through my lunch, because I definitely have, but I try to be as conscious as I can to slow down and chew my food and to eat, because that's like your midday fuel up. Like if you're in the race and you pull over to the pit stop and the guys are trying to refill your Formula One car and you take off while they're still filling the tank, you're not going to finish the race.
100%. And so my lunch is probably about 4 or 5 servings of veggies and a salad, a full avocado, some nuts and seeds, and then like a nice good dressing, a nice avocado or olive oil based dressing, and probably 8 ounces of protein. And that works great. And I feel satiated, and I feel really like I get a lot of nutrition in. And I would just say the only people that I would say the 12-hour may not work for are people that really have very poor blood sugar issues, and their blood sugar is dropping during the night and they're waking up. So those are the people where I would say you probably want something within 2 hours before bed, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat. People that have very low cortisol may need a teaspoon to a tablespoon of honey with a tablespoon of coconut oil before bed, because their blood sugar is dropping. So I would always say sleep would trump the idea of being in a 12/12 fast. Does that make sense?
It does. I was at a point where I had to do that, and now I don't. So that's a good sign of progress when you can not wake up through the night due to the blood sugar issue. There's other causes to wake up in the middle of the night, but yeah, blood
could be a
sugar.
detoxification issue too. Could be a gut infection that's stimulating cortisol that's waking you up. So, as functional medicine docs, we understand the potential algorithm and we go through our checklist of what the possibilities could be.
It's just funny how we start out with such a simple topic, but then we expand upon that, because in the world of, as you said, like clickbait and titles and all that, people just don't slow down enough to understand the different variables. And I think it's very important to slow down and to hear these different pieces of the puzzle. Because if you go to 10 different people and you ask them why you're waking up in the middle of the night, you're going to get 10 different answers. And so we really want to help you understand the mechanisms behind things, not just like, yeah, you need to take a melatonin supplement.
Yeah, and we'll probably put the title of this podcast a little bit clickbaity, like the pitfalls of intermittent fasting. But I want to be clear, there are people that can benefit, and most should be able to benefit. We just want to make sure the people that don't, here's why. And if you want to be someone, or you think you're someone that could benefit, make sure you go into it with relatively good health, because I don't want you to walk into it and then have health issues, and those health issues don't get better, maybe go backwards a little bit, and you're not sure why. And so that could be a stressor. But if you go into it relatively healthy and that stress starts to accumulate, well, you at least know that it's because of the intermittent fasting. But if you are strong enough and have enough, constitution health wise, then that's great. Enjoy those benefits and maybe do it a couple times a week versus every day.
Yep. Well said. Well, let's wrap this thing up. If you all want to reach out to Justin, he works with people around the world, and we send labs to your door, except for blood. We send you out to a lab for that. But if it's stool, urine, a lot of the advanced functional medicine testing, we're very grateful and lucky that you can do that at your house, and you send it back through the mail. You get the reports back, you go over it, and you make a protocol, you get better. So that's how you do it. That's the logistics of it. So reach out to Justin at justinhealth.com. And there's hundreds of more pieces of content. So if you're just finding us and you're like, man, these guys are pretty cool, I want to learn more. Well, there's more content. Type in whatever thing you're looking for on his site. My website, evanbrand.com. We do the same thing. So, please reach out if you need help. Don't wait till you're suffering and at rock bottom. It's much easier if you know something's off and you fix it now versus like, hey, I'm at the end of my rope. We're generally somebody that, the person's already been to 20 practitioners before they get to us, but it's a really nice sigh of relief for us when we get somebody who's like, yeah, I got some stuff off, and then we fix it before they're at a critical state.
Exactly. And then if you guys enjoy it and you're utilizing our services already as a patient or a supplementation or just utilizing some of the products we personally recommend ourselves on our stores, if you're not doing that, we appreciate you doing it. But if not, give us a share, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, share the content, spread this information. It's totally free to friends or family so they can improve their health, and also engage in the discussion. Put your comments below. I love to know what you guys are thinking. It gives me something to think about regarding future topics. And your questions really, I think, drive what future content will be about. When people ask a lot of the same things, I want to answer more of those questions. So it really motivates us to create new and even better content that's inspired to support our listeners.
Yep. Well, great chat. I enjoyed it, and we'll be back next Monday.
Evan, great chat, man. You have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.